sure about this?
Yes. We can't stay here any longer.
I thought you loved me. How can you just walk away?
I do love you.
That's why I have to do this. I'm sorry, Aaron. I can't return your feelings. I wish I could, but I can't.
My heart won't stop racing. I know this is crazy, but I need you to know how I feel. I love you.
By focusing on these key strategic areas, we ensure not only immediate returns, but also long-term sustainable growth.
I thought I had it all figured out, me and Sarah. We'd been friends for years. She was my best friend, my confidant, the one person who always seemed to get me. I'd been there for her through everything, the late-night talks, the laughter, the shared memories. And I thought, maybe, just maybe, there was more between us than just friendship. It took me a while to admit it to myself, but I loved her. I always had. And for months, I kept it bottled up, not sure how to tell her. I wasn't the type to make things complicated. But as time went on, the feelings grew stronger, and I couldn't keep pretending. So, one evening, as we sat in her living room, I made a decision. "Sarah," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "There's something I've been meaning to tell you for a while now." I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I love you. I've loved you for a long time, and I can't keep it to myself anymore. I want to be with you. I could see the surprise flash across her face. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she said nothing. It was like the air in the room froze, and I held my breath, waiting for her response. But then she spoke, and it wasn't the words I had hoped for. "I'm sorry, Aaron," she said, her voice soft, almost regretful. "But I don't feel the same way." The words hit me like a slap in the face. I blinked, not fully processing what she had said. She continued, her eyes not meeting mine. "I've been seeing someone else. Alex. He's different. He has everything I want. I can't," she paused, struggling to find the right words, "I can't be with you. You're a great friend, Aaron, but that's all." I could feel the blood draining from my face, the warmth of the room suddenly feeling cold. My stomach twisted, and all I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat. I tried to say something, anything, but my voice caught in my throat. Alex. Of course. He was everything I wasn't. Confident. Wealthy. The type of man she deserved, or so she thought. The man who could offer her everything I never could. "Sarah," I finally choked out. "But, we've been through so much together. How can you just throw that all away for someone like him?" She sighed, her gaze distant. "I never meant to hurt you, Aaron. But I need more. I need a future. And I thought you understood. But this, she gestured between us, this isn't enough anymore. I stood there, frozen, trying to make sense of her words. I couldn't. I didn't know what hurt more, the fact that she didn't love me, or the fact that she had already chosen someone else. She was already walking toward the door, her bag slung over her shoulder. I didn't know how to respond, so I just stood there, silent, numb. "I'm sorry," she said one last time before she left, disappearing into the night. The door clicked shut, and I was left standing in the empty room, my chest tight with an ache I couldn't describe. I collapsed onto the couch, my mind a whirl of confusion. How could she choose him? How could she choose a life of money and status over what we had? I had given her everything I could, but apparently, it wasn't enough. My hands clenched into fists. The pain was unbearable. But somewhere, deep inside, I knew this wasn't the end. It couldn't be. I was alone. I was shattered. But I wasn't going to stay here forever. I had to rise above this. I had to prove to myself that I could move on. I couldn't let her decision break me. I wouldn't. The days after Sarah left were nothing short of agonizing. I went through the motions, work, home, sleep, repeat, but every moment felt like a heavy weight. Everywhere I looked, there were reminders of her. The photos of us together, the messages we'd shared, the little things we had laughed about. They were all still there, but they felt like they belonged to someone else. Not me. And then there was Alex. I hadn't met him in person yet, but the rumors were enough. He was everything I wasn't. Rich. Charismatic. Confident. The kind of guy who could offer her everything she wanted, everything I couldn't. The worst part was, I couldn't even hate him. He was living the life I had dreamed of, and she had walked away from me to be with him. I couldn't escape the thought of her with him. But then something in me snapped. I realized I wasn't going to sit around and feel sorry for myself. I wasn't going to be the guy who had everything handed to him on a silver platter, only to be rejected for someone more appealing. I wasn't going to let Sarah's choice define me. I started going to the gym. I threw myself into work. I spent hours learning new skills, things I'd always put off, things that could make me better, stronger. I wasn't going to be the guy who was left behind. I would be the one to live my own version of success, on my own terms. I didn't need Sarah. I didn't need Alex. I needed to be me, the real me, the one who could rise from the ashes of this rejection and build something better. I had a fire inside me now, a hunger for something more than just her approval. As the weeks went by, I began to change. My body grew stronger. My mind cleared. I wasn't the broken man I was when she walked out. I was becoming someone I could be proud of, someone who could stand tall without needing to be validated by anyone, especially her. But the question still lingered. Would Sarah ever realize what she'd lost? Or would she just continue to live in her perfect little world with Alex? I couldn't focus on that. It was time for me to move on, to create a life that didn't revolve around her. It was time for me to live the dream. It's been weeks. Weeks since Sarah rejected me. Weeks since she chose him over me, and still, the pain doesn't fade. I've tried to move on, to convince myself that I'm fine, that I'm stronger now, but it's like every time I see her, it all comes rushing back. She's still in my life, still in my circles, still close enough for me to feel the sting each time I see her with him. Every time I walk into a cafe, I see them sitting together. Every time I go out with friends, they're there, laughing, smiling, their hands intertwined. Alex. He's everything I'm not. Confident, wealthy, the perfect match for her. The way she looks at him. I can't escape it. It's like a knife in my chest. How could she choose him over me? I don't understand. How could she reject me so easily, like I wasn't worth it? I've spent the past few weeks torturing myself with these thoughts. I've seen Sarah enough to know that she's happy, at least, that's how it seems. She's living the life she always wanted. And here I am, stuck in this same cycle, caught between anger and longing, too proud to ask for help but too hurt to move on. But something in me has finally shifted. I can't keep wallowing in this pain. I can't keep letting her, and him, define my happiness. So, I've decided to do something about it. The first step was simple: work. I dove into my job like it was my lifeline. Long hours, endless meetings, deadlines, I didn't care. I had to fill the void. I couldn't keep letting my thoughts spiral into the same dark places. It was like drowning in a sea of memories, of what could have been. But at least with work, I could focus. It was something I could control. The second step, something I never thought I would do, was hitting the gym. I started running every morning. At first, it was unbearable. My body felt like it was breaking down, aching with each step. But I pushed through. I didn't care if it hurt. I didn't care if I was gasping for air. Every bead of sweat felt like it was washing away the weight of my past. Every weight I lifted, every mile I ran, was me trying to become someone better, someone stronger. Not for Sarah. Not for anyone else. But for me. I was starting to see changes, physically and emotionally. I looked in the mirror every day, and while I still saw the man who had been broken by love, I also saw someone else. Someone with potential. Someone who wasn't going to let this heartbreak define his future. But it wasn't just the physical changes that mattered. I started making small adjustments to my daily life. I cleaned out the apartment, got rid of old things that reminded me of her. I rearranged my furniture. It felt like I was reassembling my life, bit by bit. It wasn't easy, but I could feel it, the gradual change, the slight lifting of the weight that had been pressing on my chest. Still, I couldn't shake the questions. Every time I saw Sarah with Alex, I couldn't help but wonder, why him? Why not me? What did he have that I didn't? I had been there for her. I had been the one to pick up the pieces every time she was hurt, the one to console her when she needed it. I wasn't perfect, but I loved her. I would have given her everything. But he had money, confidence, a life that looked perfect on the outside. Maybe that's all she ever wanted. I was so lost in these thoughts when I heard a knock on my door. It was Sophia. "Hey, you busy?" she asked, her voice warm as always. Sophia had been my friend for years. We had met in college, and even though our lives had taken different paths, we had always stayed in touch. She was one of the few people who truly understood me, and I found myself looking forward to seeing her every time she called. I smiled and opened the door wider. "No, just the thinking," I said, a little too honestly. Sophia stepped inside, her brown eyes studying me with a mixture of curiosity and concern. She knew something was off, but she never pushed. "Want to talk about it?" I shook my head, leaning against the kitchen counter. "I don't know if I can. I don't even know where to begin." Sophia didn't push. Instead, she took a seat at the kitchen table and nodded, letting me gather my thoughts. After a few moments of silence, she spoke, her voice soft but firm. "You've been through a lot, Aaron. But you're stronger than you think. You've always been that way, even when you don't see it." She paused, as if choosing her words carefully. "But you can't keep beating yourself up over Sarah. She made her choice. She's not your responsibility anymore. You're your responsibility now. I felt the weight of her words sink in. She was right. I couldn't keep carrying Sarah's decision around with me. I couldn't keep trying to fix something that wasn't mine to fix. I know, I said, rubbing my eyes. I don't get it. How could she choose him? He's everything I'm not. He has everything she wants, and I don't know. I feel like I wasn't enough. Sophia leaned forward, her eyes meeting mine. Aaron, you are enough. Don't measure your worth by her decision or by anyone else's standards. You're here, you're alive, and you're making something of yourself. That's what matters. Not her. Not him. Just you. Her words hit me harder than I expected, but in a good way. I wasn't sure I fully believed it yet, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I didn't need her approval. Maybe I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I looked at Sophia, her smile reassuring, her presence calming. Thank you, I said, the weight on my chest feeling a little lighter. She nodded, standing up. You'll get through this. Just remember that you don't have to do it alone. I'm here. And for the first time in weeks, I believed her. Maybe it wasn't about moving on right away, but it was about moving forward. And I had a long way to go, but I wasn't going to face it alone. It's been a few months since Sarah rejected me, and honestly, I still don't fully understand what happened. But I can't keep holding on to it. I've started seeing real changes in myself, changes that are more than just physical. I can feel it deep inside. At first, it was small, almost insignificant, a little extra weight lifted at the gym, a new client at work, a conversation with someone that felt different, more fulfilling. But then, things started to shift in a way I couldn't ignore. I looked in the mirror one day and saw a man I didn't recognize, someone stronger, more confident. My muscles had grown, and my body, once sluggish and weak from months of self-pity, had taken on a new shape. It was like I was finally shedding the skin of the man I had been, the man who had spent too much time obsessing over Sarah's rejection. I wasn't that guy anymore. At work, things were picking up. I had always been good at what I did, but for the first time, I was putting myself out there. I wasn't just going through the motions, I was actively seeking opportunities. I started taking on projects that scared me, ones I would have shied away from before. But I knew that in order to grow, I had to challenge myself. And people started noticing. It was subtle at first, just little comments here and there. "You've been working out," someone asked. "I see you've been on top of your game lately." The words were small, but they hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't invisible anymore. People were starting to see the change in me, and that made all the difference. But the most surprising thing? I didn't feel the need to prove anything to Sarah. Or Alex. In fact, I realized something important. Their world was no longer my concern. They weren't a part of my story anymore. I didn't need to chase after their approval, or even wonder if they'd ever realize what they'd given up. That wasn't my problem. Still, deep down, there was a nagging thought that wouldn't let me go. Would they ever realize what they passed up? Would Sarah ever see the man I was becoming and regret the choice she made? I hated that I still thought about it, but part of me couldn't help but wonder. I hadn't seen Sarah in weeks. She was busy with Alex, and I was busy building a life that didn't revolve around them. I didn't even want to know what their life looked like anymore. Every time I saw her name pop up on my phone or heard her mentioned in passing, a wave of indifference washed over me. I wasn't interested in the life she'd chosen. I was too focused on the life I was building. But there were moments, late at night when the world was quiet, when I couldn't shake the feeling that I still had unfinished business with her. Maybe it wasn't about getting her back. Maybe it was about proving that I was more than what she'd thought I was. Proving to myself that I didn't need her approval, but just needed to be me. Sophia noticed it, of course. She had always been in my corner, the one person who had never wavered. And as I spent more time with her, I began to notice things that I hadn't before. She was different, more than just the friend who had helped me through my darkest moments. There was a quiet warmth in her that I hadn't fully recognized. She made me feel seen. Not just as the man who had been rejected, but as the man I was becoming. She hadn't tried to fix me or change me. She had just been there. One evening, after a particularly long day of work, Sophia and I were sitting at our usual cafe, sipping coffee and talking about nothing and everything at the same time. "You've changed, Aaron," she said, looking up from her mug with a smile that was both soft and knowing. I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" She leaned back in her chair, her eyes studying me, the light from the street lamp casting a soft glow on her face. "You're not the same guy who was moping around a few months ago. You've grown. And it's not just physical. It's like you're seeing yourself in a way you never have before. And I think it's a good thing." I felt a warmth spread through me at her words. She didn't say it in a way that made me feel self-conscious. It wasn't a compliment to feed my ego, it was a simple observation, a truth that I had slowly been coming to terms with. But hearing it from her, someone who had seen me at my lowest, made it feel real. "I've had to," I said quietly, looking down at my cup. I couldn't keep living in the past. I needed to change. Sophia's smile softened even more, and she reached across the table to place her hand on mine. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. "You're doing great, Aaron. You're building something for yourself, and that's something worth being proud of." I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the way her eyes softened when she spoke, the way her presence made me feel like I wasn't alone in all of this. She had been there through it all, and for the first time, I wondered if maybe I was starting to see her in a way I hadn't before. Not just as a friend. "Thanks, Sophia," I said, my voice quiet but sincere. She squeezed my hand gently, and for a moment, I just let myself sit with that feeling. It wasn't just about Sarah anymore. It wasn't about proving anything to her or to Alex. It was about me, and where I was headed, and who I was becoming. I was done being stuck in the past. I was ready for the future. I didn't hear from Sarah for a while after that night. It was probably for the best. I was focusing on me now, on my career, my health, my growth. But still, there were moments when I caught myself wondering, what if? What if she saw me now, saw the man I'd become? Would it be enough for her to regret her decision? But then I remembered what Sophia had said, "You're building something for yourself." And that was enough. Sarah had her choice. She had Alex. And I had me. And that was all I needed. I never imagined my life would turn out like this. Just months ago, I was broken, lost in the wake of Sarah's rejection, consumed by self-doubt. But now, I was watching everything I had worked for come together in ways I hadn't thought possible. It started with one business deal, a huge one. One that would set me on a path I could barely even dream of before. When the contract was signed, it was like the floodgates opened. Clients, opportunities, new connections, it all started flowing in. My confidence surged. I no longer felt like the guy who had been left behind. I was the one in control, the one shaping his future, the one people came to for advice, for leadership. I wasn't just reacting to life anymore, I was actively participating in it. I was making things happen. I started getting noticed. At work, people started respecting me more. I was taking on bigger projects, leading meetings, and having real conversations with clients who valued my opinion. In my personal life, things were changing too. I'd been hitting the gym consistently, and it was showing. My body was stronger, more defined, and for the first time in a long time, I was seeing myself as someone worth looking at. Not just in the mirror, but in every room I walked into. It felt good. No, it felt amazing. For the first time, I could feel the weight lifting off my shoulders. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I had control, and it felt like a victory every day. But as my world accelerated, I started to hear whispers. At first, it was nothing, just passing comments from mutual friends, small talk. But over time, I couldn't ignore it. I overheard something at work one afternoon. I was standing in the hallway, talking to a colleague when I heard her mention Sarah. Apparently, she and Alex weren't doing as great as they had led everyone to believe. "She's always complaining about him," the woman said, almost casually. "She thinks she's stuck with him, but she's not happy. I mean, she thought she'd get the perfect life, but now, it's like she can't wait to escape." I froze, feeling an odd sense of satisfaction, but also emptiness. It wasn't that I wanted Sarah to suffer. But hearing that her perfect life with Alex wasn't as perfect as she thought gave me a sense of justice. She had chosen him over me. And now, it seemed like the life she wanted wasn't the dream she had imagined. But I didn't dwell on it. I couldn't afford to. I had bigger things ahead of me. My career was flourishing, and my focus was on keeping that momentum going. The world around me was changing, and I was finally in control of it. But as I would soon learn, success was bittersweet. The more I heard about Sarah's dissatisfaction, the more my curiosity grew. Not in the way I expected. I wasn't longing for her or pining for her love anymore. That part of me was gone. But a part of me couldn't help but wonder if she was starting to regret her decision. I still remember the night it all clicked. I was at a networking event, standing by the bar, when I overheard another conversation. Two people were talking about Sarah, about how she and Alex were at an event together just the week before. And they had fought. It wasn't a petty argument, it was a full-on, public dispute. Alex had been acting distant, and Sarah had been demanding more of his time, attention, and affection. But it wasn't just that, there was talk of her dissatisfaction with his lack of emotional support. They were living the dream, but not together. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to listen, to focus on the conversation. I shouldn't have been this interested. I shouldn't have cared anymore. But it felt like this was the closure I needed, the final piece of the puzzle. She was no longer the woman who rejected me and walked away into the arms of someone else. She was just another person, struggling to make it work in a relationship built on things that didn't matter. "Shouldn't she just move on?" one of the people said. "It's like she's trying to get back what she lost. She'll never be happy until she figures that out." I didn't know how to feel about it. I wasn't angry, or upset, or even thrilled. I felt indifferent. Maybe Sarah wasn't living the fantasy she thought she would. But the truth was, I wasn't interested in her life anymore. I had my own life to build. I walked away from the conversation, my thoughts swirling. Sarah and Alex's world was no longer my concern. I didn't need to know if she was happy or not. I didn't need her validation. But there was something in me, something deep inside, that wanted her to understand what she had thrown away. I couldn't help but wonder, would she ever regret it? As the days went on, I noticed Sophia becoming more of a constant in my life. She was always there, a steady presence who had never left me, even when I had nothing to give. She listened to me when I vented about my success, when I wondered about Sarah, when I started questioning whether I had really moved on. She never judged me. She just was. And it was more than I could have ever asked for from a friend. One evening, after a particularly successful week, we sat together on the balcony of my apartment, sipping wine and talking about everything and nothing. "You know, you've really changed," Sophia said, her voice light but sincere. "I've never seen you so sure of yourself. It's like the old you is gone, and this new person is someone I barely recognize. But in a good way." I smiled, glancing over at her. "I'm not sure I recognize him either." Sophia laughed softly, the sound a comfort in the quiet of the evening. "I think you're on the right path, Aaron. But don't let the past pull you back. You've got so much ahead of you." "I know," I said, taking a deep breath and looking out at the city lights. "It's just hard not to wonder sometimes if Sarah will ever see me for what I am now." Sophia's gaze softened. "She doesn't matter anymore. What matters is you. What you've become." I turned to look at her, her smile genuine, her eyes warm. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was alone in this journey. Maybe there was more than just success ahead. Maybe it was time to start thinking about what truly mattered. And for once, it wasn't Sarah's approval. It was mine. It's funny how life works, isn't it? You think you're moving on, leaving the past behind, and then, just when you're starting to feel like everything is falling into place, they come back. I hadn't heard from Sarah in months. I had built my life up from the wreckage she left behind, and I'd told myself I was done with her, done with thinking about her. My success was mine. My peace was mine. But then, one afternoon, her name flashed on my phone screen. Sarah. I stared at it for what felt like an eternity, the old ache stirring in my chest before I could even think straight. What could she possibly want? She had made her choice, and now here she was, out of nowhere, wanting to reach out. I felt the flood of anger, confusion, and, strangely, curiosity wash over me. I couldn't just ignore it. I had to hear what she had to say. Her message was simple: "Can we meet? I need to talk." I didn't know why, but I agreed. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I needed to hear it from her. Or maybe I was just curious about how her perfect life with Alex had turned out. Either way, I was stepping back into the past, something I had promised myself I would never do again. When I walked into the cafe where we agreed to meet, she was already there, sitting at a corner table by the window. She looked the same, but there was something in her eyes that I couldn't place. I didn't know if it was regret, exhaustion, or something else entirely, but it was there. Her smile, the one I had once loved, seemed forced. And when our eyes met, it was like a rush of everything I had buried coming back in waves. I sat down across from her, not knowing what to say. She spoke first. "Aaron. I know you didn't expect to hear from me." She paused, taking a deep breath. "I made a mistake. I was wrong." I could feel my stomach tighten. A mistake? Was this it? Was she finally admitting she was wrong for choosing Alex over me? My heart thudded in my chest, and I tried to keep my expression neutral, but the hurt was still there, lurking beneath the surface. "I didn't know what I was doing back then," she continued, her eyes dropping to the table. "I thought I was making the right choice, but now now I see that I was just chasing a fantasy. With Alex, it's not what I thought it would be. I'm not happy, Aaron. I've never been happy. I could feel the old anger rising, but I kept it in check. She wasn't here for me. She wasn't here for us. She was here because she was unhappy and wanted something she had left behind. I should have never left you, she said, her voice barely a whisper now. I realize that now. You were always there for me. And I'm so sorry for everything. The apology hung in the air, but it felt empty, like she was saying the words she thought I wanted to hear, not the ones that actually meant something. The truth was, I wasn't looking for her apology anymore. Not now. Not after everything. Sarah, I said, my voice calm but firm. It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter that you're unhappy with Alex or that you made a mistake. You made your choice. You wanted someone else. And now, here we are. She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. Please, Aaron. I need you. I want us to try again. I can't keep living like this. I made the wrong choice. But I swear, I won't make the same mistake again. Please, just give me another chance. I leaned back in my chair, taking a deep breath. The anger wasn't there anymore, just a quiet, steady detachment. I had done the work to move on. I wasn't about to let her come back into my life now, not when I had built something solid for myself. No, I said simply, my gaze steady as I looked at her. I'm not the same person I was back then. And I'm not going to be someone's second choice because they didn't get what they wanted the first time around. Her lips trembled, and she reached out as if to grab my hand, but I pulled back before she could. There was no more space for her in my life. There was no more room for her broken promises, her choices, or the past. I'm sorry, I said, the words coming out as a quiet, almost indifferent statement. But you're not sorry for what you did to me. You're sorry because your life didn't turn out the way you thought it would. That's not something I can fix. Her face crumpled, and for a second, I almost felt sorry for her. But the truth was, I didn't. She wasn't sorry for the hurt she caused me. She was sorry for her own failure, for the life she chose, and now, she wanted a way out. She wanted me back so she could feel whole again, but I wasn't the answer to her unhappiness. I'm not going to be your backup, I added, standing up from the table. I'm done with that version of you. You don't get to come back just because you're unhappy with what you chose. I'm not your safety net. Her head dropped into her hands as she started to cry, but I didn't feel the need to comfort her. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying because the dream she had chased was slipping away. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the cafe, feeling a quiet sense of finality settle over me. I had walked away from Sarah before, and now, I was doing it again, but this time, there was no hesitation. No longing. No desire to make things right. I had moved on, and nothing was going to pull me back into that life. I felt nothing but indifference toward her as I left her behind. The past was over. And I was finally free. Sophia had been waiting for me when I got back. She didn't ask questions, but I could see the concern in her eyes. We didn't talk about Sarah. Not right away. But as I sat down next to her on the couch, I felt a sense of peace. Sophia didn't need to fix me. She didn't need to explain away my pain or offer me any false promises. She just was. And that was enough. You're okay, right? She asked quietly. I nodded, looking at her with a small, genuine smile. Yeah. I'm okay. It was more than that, though. I was finally free. Free from the past, free from Sarah, and free from the chains I had let myself be bound by for so long. And as I sat there with Sophia, I realized that the future was mine to build. And this time, I wasn't going to let anyone take it away from me. I used to think that if I saw Sarah and Tom fail, if I witnessed their lives unravel the way they'd let mine do, I would finally find closure. I would be able to say, "This is it. This is what you deserve." But the truth? The truth is that seeing their world crack didn't bring me any sense of satisfaction. It didn't make me feel victorious. It didn't feel like I had won anything. Instead, it made me realize something deeper. I had been chasing something I didn't need: validation. I had spent so much time thinking that I needed Sarah's approval, her acknowledgement of my worth. I thought that if I saw her regret her decision, it would somehow make me whole again. But that was never going to happen. It wasn't her validation I needed. It was my own. I had spent too long in the shadows of my own life, waiting for someone else to recognize my value. But now, I could see it. I could finally see that the life I had built, the business, the strength, the peace of mind, wasn't for her. It was for me. The deeper I dug into my success, the more I realized it was all my doing. My hard work, my commitment to change, my decision to stop being the guy who waited around for someone else to validate his worth. It wasn't just about proving something to Sarah or Alex. It was about proving it to myself. But still, even as my life became more fulfilling, I couldn't ignore the emptiness that remained. There was something else I was missing. Something real. Something I had always been looking for, but never recognized until now. And then I saw it. I was sitting at my desk one afternoon, going over some new business proposals when I realized Sophia. She had been there for me through everything. Every late-night rant, every painful moment when I felt like giving up. She had supported me without question, without expecting anything in return. She had been my constant, my grounding force. And I had taken her presence for granted. I thought she was just a friend. A good friend. But now, I saw her in a completely different light. The way she always listened, the way she never pushed me but always offered me comfort. She wasn't just another person in my life. She was the one person who truly saw me. The real me. And I realized, as I thought about it, that maybe I had been blind to it before. Maybe I had been too focused on the past to notice what was right in front of me. I had spent so much time trying to fill the void that Sarah left, trying to build a life that would somehow make her see the man she had passed up. But now, I understood. I didn't need Sarah's validation. I didn't need her to regret her choices. I just needed to look around and see what I already had. Sophia was here. She had been here all along, offering me everything I needed without asking for anything in return. It wasn't just her support that mattered, it was her kindness, her quiet strength, her ability to make me feel like I wasn't alone. One evening, after a long day, I found myself sitting with Sophia on the balcony of my apartment, looking at the city lights below. We were talking about nothing in particular, the kind of conversation that didn't need to be deep to mean something. I realized then that I wasn't just talking to her as a friend. I was talking to her because I wanted to. Because I needed her. "Do you ever think about what's next?" I asked, breaking the comfortable silence. I mean, we've both been through so much, sometimes I wonder what's next for me. Sophia smiled, a soft, knowing smile. "I think about it all the time. You're already on the right path, Aaron. You're doing the things that matter. You're changing your life, and I think you're in a place now where you can go anywhere you want. I looked at her, really looked at her this time. I know. I've come so far. I paused, feeling the weight of the moment. But I think there's something else I've been missing. Sophia's expression softened. What do you mean? I've been so focused on everything else, I said, my voice quieter now, but I think I've been blind to what really matters. What's right in front of me. I could see the surprise in her eyes, but she didn't say anything. She just waited, her gaze steady, her presence calm. I think I've been looking for something to fill the void for so long, I continued, feeling a sense of clarity, but what I've been looking for was always here. With you. Sophia didn't flinch, didn't look away. She just nodded slowly, the corners of her mouth lifting in a smile. You've always had everything you needed, Aaron. I've always believed that. I swallowed hard, my heart racing. Sophia, I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know if I'm ready for anything beyond what we are now. But I can't deny what I feel. You've been there for me when no one else was. You've never asked for anything, and yet, I feel more at home with you than I've ever felt with anyone. Her smile deepened, and for the first time, I saw something more in her eyes, something soft, something hopeful. I'm not asking for anything, Aaron, she said quietly. I'm just here. Whatever happens, whatever you need, I'm here. The weight of those words hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't just here as a friend. She was here because she cared, and I realized, deep down, that maybe I cared too. More than I had been willing to admit. I reached for her hand, the gesture simple but full of meaning. For the first time in months, I felt like I had finally found something real. I had built a life I could be proud of, a life that was mine. And now, with Sophia by my side, maybe I was ready to see where this path would lead. Not just as friends, but as something more. I wasn't sure what would happen next. But for the first time in a long time, I was no longer afraid of the unknown. I knew I wasn't alone anymore. I had it all now. Success, strength, peace. For so long, I had been defined by the choices of others, by Sarah's rejection, by the life that slipped away when I wasn't looking. But I was no longer that person. I had shaped my own future, carved it out of the mess of my past, and now, it was mine to command. Every morning, I woke up feeling a sense of purpose. The weight I'd carried for so long was gone, replaced by the steady rhythm of my life. My business had grown in ways I never thought possible. The physical transformation I had worked so hard for was evident in the way I carried myself now. I stood taller, moved with confidence. But more than anything, I felt whole. Success wasn't just about the business deals I had closed or the people who now respected me. It was about me. I wasn't a victim anymore. I wasn't waiting for someone else's validation or approval. I had learned the most important lesson of all: I was enough, just as I was. I walked through the city streets now, my head high, not with arrogance but with a quiet pride. The hustle and bustle of life didn't overwhelm me anymore. It was just a backdrop to the life I had created. A life I had built with my own hands, through hard work, through persistence, and yes, through pain. But there was something else, something even more significant, that I hadn't realized until now. As I looked around at my world, at the people I'd met, the success I had found, there was one person who had been there from the beginning. One person who had never wavered, never questioned my worth, and had stood by me when I had nothing to offer. Sophia. She had always been there, in the background, offering quiet support, never asking for anything in return. She was my constant, my anchor. In the days after everything fell apart with Sarah, when I had been consumed by self-doubt, she was the one who held me steady, the one who reminded me that I wasn't alone. I realized now that she was more than just a friend. She had been the missing piece all along, the one who never left, even when it seemed like everything else was falling apart. The way she looked at me now, not with pity or sympathy, but with admiration and care, it meant more to me than any business deal, any success, any accomplishment. The truth was, I couldn't imagine a future without her. As we spent more time together, I started to see her differently. It wasn't just the way she listened to me, the way she supported me when no one else did. It was something deeper. Something I had always known but hadn't been able to admit to myself until now. I looked at her one night as we walked through the park together, our steps in sync, the night air cool but comforting. We were talking about nothing in particular, just enjoying the moment, when I realized something I hadn't fully understood until that point. Sophia wasn't just my friend anymore. She was the person who had been by my side through it all, through the worst and the best. She was the person I wanted to share everything with. She had been there when no one else had cared, when I had been broken, when I was just starting to rebuild myself. And now, with everything I had, I realized that it wasn't just about the business or the physical changes, it was about her. "Sophia," I said, my voice a little quieter than usual, the words feeling more weighty than I had intended. "I don't know how to say this, but I've been thinking a lot. About everything. And about us." She looked at me, her eyes soft, her lips curving into a small smile. "You're not broken anymore," she said, her voice steady, almost knowing. "You're whole. And that's all that matters." I shook my head, a soft laugh escaping me. "It's not just that, though. It's you. I've spent so much time worrying about what I didn't have, about what I'd lost, that I didn't see what was right in front of me." Sophia's smile faded slightly, but she didn't say anything. She just waited, as if giving me space to find the words. "You've always been here, Sophia. When I had nothing, when I was at my lowest, you were there. You've seen me at my worst, and you've still stuck by me. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like this is the start of something new. A new beginning." Her gaze softened, and she took a small step closer to me. "Aaron, I've always known that you were meant for something more. You've always had it in you. I'm just glad I got to be part of your journey." I reached out and touched her hand, the contact simple but meaningful. "No, Sophia. You're not just part of it. You're the reason I'm standing here, the reason I'm finally seeing things clearly. You've been more than a friend. You've been my strength when I didn't have any of my own." For a long moment, we stood there, looking at each other. There were no grand declarations, no sweeping gestures. Just the quiet understanding that we had both reached the same conclusion, that the life we were building together was something more than either of us had ever imagined. "I want this," I said, my voice low, but full of sincerity. "I want us. Not just as friends, but as something more. Because I know now that you, are what I've been searching for all along." Sophia's smile returned, brighter this time, and she squeezed my hand gently. "I want that too, Aaron." And just like that, I realized that I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't just a man rebuilding his life from the wreckage of the past. I was a man with a future I was ready to share with her. I had the success, the strength, the peace I had always dreamed of. But now, I had something more. I had someone who had been by my side, someone who had never left, someone I could build a future with. As we walked through the park, our hands intertwined, I knew that this was just the beginning. The life I had once dreamed of was finally mine, and it was better than I ever imagined.